Superhero movies are on a decline, and we're living in an era where the guy who could single-handedly be saving the entire genre of comic book films is one of the cops from Superbad. Yes, I'm talking about Seth Rogen. A lot of people have been asking themselves lately, why doesn't the MCU hit like it used to? Why does every new project feel like homework? And why is Seth Rogen, of all people, who used to make stoner films, suddenly producing some of the best superhero shows on TV?
Did seeing that man lose his life disturb you? Did it hurt? Well, let's see how you handle that.
Here's something most people don't want to admit. Marvel isn't just competing with itself anymore. Take a look at what's happening on streaming. The MCU pushed out shows like Secret Invasion, She-Hulk, and Ms. Marvel. And other than something like Loki, which honestly was a good show, most of these MCU series just fizzled out. Critics weren't impressed, audiences checked out, and the comments online weren't flattering.
That was not a good show. It was whatever the opposite of a good show is. I won't say it, but it was that. This was rough.
Meanwhile, Seth Rogen's name is attached to projects like The Boys, Invincible, Preacher, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem. And every single one of those projects killed it in the ratings. They built massive fandoms and won critics over hard. So yeah, the MCU might have defined superhero storytelling in the 2010s, but it really feels like Seth Rogen is the one who's shaping it in the 2020s. And just to be clear, I really do love Kevin Feige. So this isn't a Kevin Feige versus Seth Rogen thing. It's a full-on clash of philosophies. It's a clash of production styles, and it's a clash of what superhero content can be. Because let's face it, when the guy who created Pineapple Express is making better superhero content than the biggest entertainment machine in the world, that's a story worth unpacking. So here's my opinion. When people talk about Marvel's connected universe being a strength, they're not wrong. Or at least back in the day they weren't wrong. Because back in the day, the interconnectedness of the Infinity Saga was exciting, the Easter eggs were hype, and the post-credit scenes felt like puzzle pieces. But now that story structure is feeling more like a disadvantage than an advantage. You see, every MCU movie, every show, every special, all have to exist in the same managed universe. The same tone, the same style, the same stakes, the same color grading. That leaves very little room for variety. The MCU isn't really a craft anymore, it's a formula now. And this puts the production team for the MCU at a disadvantage because you can't get too weird with the cinematography, you can't have too much gore or too much darkness. If you want a scary vibe, you have to go Disney scary. If you want to question power structures, you're only allowed to keep them surface level. And this isn't a diss to Kevin Feige. The man built an empire, but the same thing that made Marvel unstoppable for a decade is now slowing it down. Because the audience has evolved, people want flavor now. They want genre bending, raw, chaotic, uncomfortable stuff. The type of things that makes them laugh for 1 second and flinch the next. And that's where Seth Rogen comes in. He's not trying to build a cinematic universe. He's just building good shows and good movies. I mean, look at The Boys for example. That show doesn't pull its punches. It has superheroes doing drugs, committing war crimes, murdering people while smiling for the camera. It's satire. And it's grotesque, and it's hilarious. And most importantly, it's completely disconnected from Invincible, which is an animated bloodbath with the heart of a father-son drama. Then you've got Preacher, the one most people don't even know about. It's literal god hunting, angels in trench coats, vampires and bar fights, all in a southern gothic setting. And somehow Seth Rogen still had room to make family-friendly content, like a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that felt like a cross between a coming-of-age buddy comedy and a Spider-Verse sequel. None of these are Marvel-style projects, and that's the point. They don't have to exist with the same tone. They don't have to build towards some mega crossover. And my point is that they're better off because of it. This flexibility means that each project gets to be exactly what it wants to be. None of them have to compromise anything. None of their marketing has to be the same. And no scriptwriter has to worry about how does this set up Phase 6. And it shows in the quality. While Marvel's 2023 lineup had movies like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania flopping on opening weekend and pulling in way less than earlier MCU films, Seth Rogen's Mutant Mayhem had a modest budget and killed it at the box office. Critics and fans loved it. Meanwhile, The Boys remains one of Amazon's most talked about series, and Invincible, despite being animated, which usually limits audience numbers, has grown a fan base season after season.
Think, Mark! You'll outlast every fragile, insignificant being on this planet!
And why is that? Why are people more hyped for Homelander's next meltdown than whatever Dr. Doom's gonna do? Why are audiences more invested in a cartoon with brutal dismemberment than multiverse cameos? Why does it feel like the most exciting superhero stories aren't coming from the billion-dollar franchise, but from the stoner guy who made Sausage Party? This is because Seth Rogen isn't trying to sell us a brand. He's just telling stories. Wild, unfiltered, and occasionally unhinged stories that feel alive. And when each project is allowed to breathe on its own, not tied to essential continuity, you get something rare in modern superhero content. You get a surprise. You don't know what's going to happen in The Boys because the show is allowed to do whatever it wants. There's no status quo that needs to be preserved. There's no guarantee that the hero's going to win. There's no safety net at all. Marvel, on the other hand, has become predictable. The stakes don't feel real when you know the next movie in the franchise has already been announced. I remember when Spider-Man died in Infinity War, and that moment was supposed to be dramatic and sad, but it also didn't hit as hard as they probably intended for it to hit, because the next Spider-Man movie was already announced the next year. And this isn't just about writing, it's about the feeling of watching something where anything can happen. And that's what makes Seth Rogen's approach feel fresh, even as superhero fatigue has set aboard. While Marvel is trying to figure out how to pull off Phase 6 and fix its VFX pipeline, Seth Rogen is just casually dominating the space with shows that are bloodier, funnier, weirder, and more human. Now think about this. Marvel's interconnected universe is supposed to be its unbeatable weapon. But what if, in the year of 2025, it might be the thing holding it back? Seth Rogen doesn't have to worry about crossover events or setting up the next saga. He just tells one story at a time and lets it be unforgettable. Remember when movies didn't need to cost $250 million and they still packed theaters? Let me take you back to a weirdly nostalgic time, the mid-2000s. When comedies like Superbad, Pineapple Express, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Step Brothers were dominating the box office. There were no superhero capes, no world-ending threats, no multiverses that you had to keep a track of, just good scripts, weird characters, tight runtimes, and actors who were allowed to be funny. And these weren't niche films either, they made serious money. Superbad had a budget of $20 million and made over $170 million globally. These movies were events. They had staying power. People quoted them, memed them, and rewatched them every time they were on TV. So what happened to them? Well, Marvel happened to them. When Iron Man hit in 2008 and the Avengers exploded in 2012, the entire industry shifted. Suddenly every studio wanted to have a cinematic universe. Every executive wanted a guaranteed billion-dollar hit. And mid-budget comedies, they got squeezed out. If your movie wasn't part of a larger IP, it barely got greenlit. Studios started playing it safe. Instead of a $30 million comedy with smart jokes and new stars, they wanted a $200 million investment that could sell Happy Meals and Halloween costumes. The problem is, not every story should cost that much, and not every franchise deserves to be stretched out into a saga. Marvel didn't just change the rules, they burnt the whole rulebook down, and in the process they accidentally helped kill the kinds of movies that made guys like Seth Rogen household names in the first place. But here's where it gets interesting. Seth didn't just adapt to the new system, he hacked it. He leaned into TV, animation, satire, and genre-bending stories, and now? Mid-budget comedies are coming back, but they're coming back in disguise. The Boys isn't just a superhero parody, it's a black comedy with political commentary, celebrity mockery, and workplace shenanigans. If you think about it, it's closer to The Office than it is to Iron Man 3. Invincible mixes Game of Thrones brutality with a coming-of-age comedy twist. Even Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles has the DNA of an early Apatow comedy. These projects aren't massive budget giants. They're efficient, they're focused, and they're packed with personality. They're the Superbad and Pineapple Express of the superhero era. Meanwhile, recently Marvel has shown its limits. A-list stars are burnt out, audiences are confused, casual fans don't want to do homework, and more than ever, people are craving something different, something messy, and something with an edge. Seth Rogen saw a gap in the market and he went for it. And let's be clear, I'm not saying that Marvel is doomed or anything, but it does mean that they're vulnerable in a way that we haven't seen since 2010. The golden formula is rusting. Rogen, on the other hand, doesn't need a formula. He needs a good script, a bold tone, and the freedom to go as far as he wants to go. And so far, audiences are following him there. So maybe it's not that the superhero genre is dead. Maybe we're just finally sick of watching the same story with the same tone a dozen times a year. Maybe, just maybe, we want stories that take risks. Stories that get a little gross, a little dark, a little funny. Stories that don't take themselves too seriously. And right now, the guy who's doing that better than anyone else is Seth Rogen, the guy who once voiced a talking hot dog. Now let's talk about what we've lost, because no one really brings this part up when they talk about the rise of superhero movies. Everyone talks about the box office dominance, the CGI, the multiverse, and whatever. But you know what people usually don't talk about? How superheroes quietly murdered comedies. And when I say comedies, I'm not talking about the jokey lines in superhero films.
Rip off your arms and shove them up your butt! Oh, that's right, yes, go cry to your father, you little weasel.
Thank you, Thor. I'm talking about actual standalone mid-budget R-rated comedies. The kind of movies Seth Rogen, Jonah Hill, and Paul Rudd had built careers on. The kind of stuff that you didn't need a post-credit scene to sell tickets of. There was a time when a movie like Knocked Up made $200 million in the box office. When a group of teenagers from Superbad became Hollywood royalty off of one film. If it's not based on a comic book, a toy, or a 30-year-old cartoon, basically good luck getting that greenlit. And I guess it was inevitable. Studios saw Marvel doing what it did and said, hey, we want that. Bigger budgets, bigger IPs, safer bets. And slowly but surely, they traded originality for franchise insurance. Comedies weren't bankable anymore. Not in this era where a movie can make $1 billion in the box office. But the problem isn't just that superhero films got big. It's that they started pretending to be comedies. Guardians of the Galaxy dropped in 2014 and suddenly every superhero movie needed to be funny. Except not all the movies were actually funny, they were just quippy. They had banter and they had sarcasm. And us, the audience, we went along with it because it felt fresh and it felt fun. But now, 15 years deep in, suddenly it all started feeling cheap. Because not many of these movies are actually funny. They're just trying really hard to not be boring, which isn't the same thing. Meanwhile, you've got someone like Seth Rogen, who's made an entire career off of comedy. He had a choice to either adapt or disappear. Because this is the part that people forget. Seth Rogen didn't just pivot to be trendy. He didn't wake up and say, you know what, I want to produce the darkest, bloody superhero satire ever. He basically had no choice. The movie landscape changed and he had a choice, either be a part of it or be left behind. So what did he do? He played the new game, but he played it on his own terms. He gave us The Boys. He gave us Invincible. He gave us Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. A movie I guess that was made for kids, but still felt very Seth Rogen. Each project in its own universe with more to come. None of these movies are forced to have the same tonal consistency. None of these movies have to be glued into a multiverse to hold it all together. And with that comes freedom. And somehow that freedom has given us better superhero content than Marvel has given us in the past 5 years. Because while Marvel is still stuck trying to make everything for everyone, Seth Rogen is busy making something for someone. And maybe that's why his stuff hits harder. He didn't just survive the death of comedy blockbusters, he rose from its ashes and made the superhero genre funny again. So could Seth Rogen really be the future of superhero storytelling? Right now, it's looking like it. He's not building a shared universe or trying to break box office records. He's just making bolder, weirder, funnier stories. And people are actually showing up for them. Meanwhile, the MCU feels stuck. Everything is interconnected and tonally restricted in a way that feels like they're trying to be too careful. But Seth Rogen's projects, on the other hand, when we talk about The Boys, Invincible, and Teenage Mutant Ninja, they're chaotic, genre-bending, and completely free. But let's not count Kevin Feige out just yet, because Secret Wars is on its way. And if you know the comics, you know that this puts Marvel in a position where they could completely reboot their universe. That means new actors, new tones, and a clean slate. And Kevin Feige has done the impossible before, so if anybody can reinvent the MCU, it's definitely him. But still, the fact is that Seth Rogen, once the face of stoner comedies, might be the one keeping superhero content alive in the meantime. And that's a plot twist that Hollywood itself couldn't write. As you can see, I only have 1,000 subscribers, so if you really enjoyed this video, please hit the like and subscribe because I have more content like this coming. And thank you for watching.